Good morning. It's Golden VCR. I think I'm getting better. I'm highlighting my progress. It's a little continuity here to our previous. Oh my God! It's a train. Just a little bit of Clementine every morning keeps doctor away. Always practice your harmonica when you get out of bed and right before you go to bed. Your neighbors will love you. Good morning, everybody. Thank you. I'm seeing the resubs, man. Thank you all. It is September. I've been informed by a little pop-up on Twitch that they're like adding a 10% bonus on top of Cheers 300 bits and above, and also it's September, so the things are discounted. So gee, if you feel like you don't get anything, but I do, if you feel like having a supporting the stream, what a great time to do it. Oh my God. Last stream before your new job. Oh, congrats on the new job, Jace. All right, so, oh, good Lord. Oh, that's what happens. Okay, Twitch gives me 150 bits. Well, nice. Excellent. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Jace. So we've had a 9-month resub from Circle Now Squared and a 6-month from Haley92 for a total of 10 months. 10 months, good Lord. That's great. That's great. All right. Let's open it up with Flight of the Urubu, and then we will talk about our tapes for today. This is going to be a shorter stream today. I have been sitting in front of a computer hunched over for days and days working on stuff and just generally being stressed. So I need to go outside. Boom. Maria Martinez, take it away. Today we have Stretchin' to the Classics with Richard Simmons. I've been in real pain. It's starting in my elbows now from all the typing, and my neck and my shoulders. Like really, I'm really kind of flabbergasted anew. I reach new levels of like, oh shit, every time now that I have just bodily pains that seem to come out of nowhere and seem to always be worse than they ever have been. Welcome to getting old, I guess. So I figured some light stretching with Richard Simmons would be a great thing to just sort of loosen me up without too much high impact oldies. Roses are red, violets are blue. Here is a stretch tape I made just for you. There's classical music you have loved and have heard. To your surprise, I don't utter a word. From the tips of your fingers to those 10 little toes, I'll get rid of your aches, your pain, and your woes. That's Stretchin' to the Classics, Richard Simmons. Colton KP, subscriber for 7 months, has resubbed for 12 months. Thank you so much. Y'all are keeping me doing this. You're making it happen for sure.
Hello, my name is Maria Martinez, and I would like to welcome you to Brazilian Coordination for Drum Set.
Brazilian coordination for VCR. Let's do it. Well, let's check out real quick. Richard Simmons, Stretchin' to the Classics. So this is a brief, I think like 15 or 20 minute tape with just classical music and Richard Simmons, and apparently he doesn't say anything. It's just his beautiful face and the vibes and the stretches. Roses are red, violets are blues. Here is a stretch tape I made just for you. There's classical music you have loved and heard, and to your surprise, I don't utter a word. From the tips of your fingers to those 10 little toes, I'll get rid of your aches, your pain, and your woes. Richard Simmons. Featuring the Peer Gynt Suite, Waltz in A Flat by Brahms, Canon in D Major by Pachelbel, the Carmen Suite by Georges Bizet, and Scheherazade by Rimsky-Korsakov. Truly some classics. Let's get to it. Let's stretch. This is fairly low impact, I think. So I am gonna stretch along, and boom, just sort of. Yeah, this works. Let me full screen this.
Hi, Dad.
Hey, bud, how's it going?
Good.
Well, you know what, champ?
Oh, lonesome dad.
I'm going to be home in just a couple more days, and then you and I'll go play ball. How's that sound?
Good.
Just the two of us. I love you.
Love you, too.
Oh my god. What a beautiful computer animated intro. It's the Richard Simmons Eyewitness Museum. Oh, it's Richard. A 10-month reset from seemingly just, well, have fun at the dentist's, i.e. the tooth scraping zone. Oh, these are good stretches, man. Richard knows. This tape was sent in by Green Day Rock, by the way. Thank you. And it's from... there was no year on it. I'm sure it could be Googled. It looks like 90s Richard Simmons. He's in really peak physical condition here. What a handsome man. I am really feeling this in my shoulder blades, which have been aching for days. Like, for days and days now, it's just like really hurt to move my head side to side. Not in like a something is broken and I need to go to the hospital way, just like, oh God, I did not know I could be this sore from just sitting in front of a computer. That's what I mean about the ravages of getting old. Like I can't do that head tilt all the way on one side. This is a really great tape. I love it so far. I can imagine if I were like a 70-year-old grandma in 1996, I would absolutely pull this tape out and pop it into the VCR every single morning. There's a part of me that really wishes Richard Simmons were talking more, or at all. Mostly because he's Richard Simmons. If it were anyone else, if it were Tony Little, I would not want him to talk. Remember to gaze in awe at your own hand as it passes above you. That's an essential part of it. Magic chair! Oh, I have one of those. I mean, it's not magic, but... Sparkle, sparkle, sparkle. Oh, we're doing chair now. Okay. Who doesn't love Pachelbel's Canon? In D. Pachelbel's Canon in A through C and E and F. Not as great. Just curious, is anyone else stretching along with Richard? Oh, what does he do? How is his foot rotated that way? I don't think I can do that. Oh, we got a magic archer away now. Oh, no, we just rotate it. My chair is much lower, or I am just taller. That's a good calf stretch. I do. Bear chair is wonderful. How much was bear chair? I think you have to build and paint it yourself. Yeah, it was like $40, but you gotta make it yourself. I think it was $40 for plans, actually. I could make my own pirate bear chair. Yeah, these are oldies indeed. We are stretching to the classics. Okay, this chair is slightly better because the back is higher. Okay, magic your chair away. Ah! Little George Bizet. Ooh, hand stretches. Okay, I do need these. I can feel it. Ooh, digits. Stretch your digits. God, the dramatic flair. Hello, Bella Bunny. This is Stretchin' to the Classics with Richard Simmons. It's a short one. This is Scheherazade. This is our last little bit of it. Every time I hear Scheherazade, it makes me want to rewatch The Thief and the Cobbler, which is an incredible animated film directed by Richard Williams that was never finished, but somebody cobbled together work prints and unfinished scenes and stuff and made it a watchable film. And a lot of the placeholder music for it was Scheherazade and other Rimsky-Korsakov compositions. The old headset grab. To me, Richard looks so powerful, so confident, so serene. He's normally in all these tapes so unashamedly bombastic and excited and energetic and encouraging, vocally encouraging, and that's what makes him so great. But it's interesting to see here the panache that he carries when he's not even speaking. Aw. Farewell, Richard. That was lovely. What a nice little thing to wake up to. Set painted by Ron Crabb. Produced at the production group. Everyone smiles at Ron Crabb. Ooh, Melinda Tidwell did this 3D animation. Oh God, yeah, the I forget. Yeah, sometimes, yeah, that the Thief and the Cobbler was released by Miramax in a horribly mangled version. Whew. That was Stretchin' to the Classics with Richard Simmons. Thank you again to Green Day. I really enjoyed that. I hope you did too. Now then, as I mentioned, this is going to be a shorter stream. Just because I want to go like take a hike or something. If you have more, if you have any more song requests, go for it. But our second and final tape today will be Sister Wendy's Story of Painting, Early Art. This is, I was really jazzed to find this in a thrift store here because I didn't actually know anything about Sister Wendy until like just a year ago or less when Haley's parents were visiting and they were talking about her. So apparently she's, was a fixture of public television in the 80s and 90s maybe. But she's a nun from England who is very interested in art history and has produced all these programs about it. And her presentation style is just really, really lovely and irreverent, I guess, in way like not crass, but unpretentious in ways that you would not expect from a nun. So this is I believe one of her. Well, it's I think the first program in this series that she produced in the 90s. Let's read about it. Join Sister Wendy Beckett on an incomparable journey through art and history in this first chapter of her critically acclaimed BBC series. From the mysterious cave paintings at Lascaux to the ecstatic spiritual visions of the Middle Ages, Sister Wendy traces the roots of Western art, the tomb paintings of ancient Egypt, Greek vases and statuary, the Roman paintings of Pompeii, Ireland's masterpiece The Book of Kells, and France's Les Très Riches Heures. Then see the dawn of artistic enlightenment in the work of Giotto and the vibrant art and life of Tuscany before traveling north across Europe to Bruges, where Flemish painter Jan van Eyck created miracles with oil and wood, and to Holland, where the horrific visions of Hieronymus Bosch marked the end of the Gothic era. Yeah, as someone who was forced to study art history in college, but really enjoyed it, this is, I'm familiar with all of these things, and I'm just really excited to experience Sister Wendy's take on them. this is just going to be the early stuff, I think. It's a 54-minute program from the BBC, and other episodes, I think, are available on other places. If you want to watch more after we're done with this. It's Sister Wendy's Story of Painting, Early Art on Golden VCR. Thank you, by the way, to Missing No Leader for a 10-month resub. I can't believe it. Yeah, we didn't have chiaroscuro and 3-point perspective in cave art, I don't think. Attention, le droit d'auteur de son observatoire international de réputation s'apprête l'usage strictement préférentiel de la action civile et pénale le septembre à Stockholm leur interpelle le volonté de l'infraction. Oh, hi, Mal. Indeed, it is time for the story of painting. Let's find out how it all began. BBC. Thank you, Will, for the 1,000 bits, which Twitch has generously added 100 to. I don't care. All right, we will absolutely watch Pierre after the stream. One of the things that people like about Sister Wendy is how she talks about like sex and nudity and the human body and how all that's depicted in art. She is not a prudish nun, and I think people are drawn to that.
The story of Western painting starts here, in the Dordogne, in the south of France.
And she has a very darling accent.
20,000 years ago, it all looked quite different. Covered in ice and snow, the haunt of woolly mammoths and reindeer, which were hunted by our small, hairy ancestors. Primitive? Yes. But here, somewhere underneath my feet, is the proof that they were like us in all the ways that really matter. With only their flickering lamps to guide them, the cavemen felt their way down into the earth.
I want to be a caveman.
When the prehistoric artists came to Lascaux, the caves were impenetrably dark. These great images were not made to be seen, still less to be sight-seen. Why did they paint them here in the depth of the earth down winding corridors? Some people thought that they were priest painters making hunting magic for the tribe. But the animal the tribe lived on, using every part of it, a kind of walking supermarket, was the reindeer. And they don't paint reindeer. What they paint are the great bulls and bison and the wild deer, all the animals they didn't hunt, but they watched them. Take my favorite image, the great horse, the Mongolian horse. The Mongolian horse doesn't really look like that, with that great sway of the belly and that sharp nose and the inspired black calligraphy of the legs. It's, dare I say it, an impressionistic horse, an impression of a horse, and yet an odd impression. Almost as if the artist was not trying to show what a horse was like, but what it felt to be a horse. Or look at the great bison. These two great black balls of male erotic fury going to explode on one another. He's looked, the artist. He's seen that one of them is losing his coat because it's spring, the rutting season. Observation, and yet emotionally, how right. That great red streak shows something of the feeling of the animal. And it's this looking with awe and with wonder that makes Lascaux what it is. Because all these animals are beautiful. And centuries ago, when there was room on earth for all of us, how humankind must have yearned to be strong and beautiful, free, innocent, all the things that they were not and we are not. And perhaps that's why they made these images secretly in the earth, to honor the animals. And so you see, scientifically, these are primitive people, because science advances. It's like a ladder, one step leads to another. But art isn't like that. Art is about being human. Children make art instinctively. Archaeologists know when they find evidence of art, they found evidence of human beings. It expresses all that is best in us, our desires, our hopes, our truth. And so art changes, but it doesn't get better. And in the great hall of the bulls, with these images of majesty and power, so strong, so dignified, we understand that painting starts at the top.
Yeah, I haven't seen much of her stuff.
The caves, a blank.
I was just so captivated by what little clips I have seen.
15,000 years
so captivated
go by,
now.
And then the story starts again in ancient Egypt.
She clearly loves all this stuff and has
In
such
the world of the
a great way of
fairies,
articulating
the
that
Tutankhamun
appreciation.
world, human creation was on an epic scale. But though we know the names of the rulers, we know practically nothing about the architects, sculptors, and painters. They were merely functional, as you can see from the name for both sculptor and painter, he who keeps alive. Essentially, the art of ancient Egypt springs from their intense belief in the afterlife. Originally, all these temples were covered in brightly colored paint. But the harsh outside world erodes, burns, bleaches out. It's only in the sealed away places, like the tombs, where paintings have survived. This is a painting we were never supposed to see. It was a purely private matter between Ramose, the governor of Thebes, and an artist whose name we'll never know, but whose skill would enable Ramose to do what he couldn't do himself, that is, have a highly successful afterlife. Because the Egyptians believed that what you had in the tomb went with you. It made all the difference between great success in the afterlife and miserable anonymity. Now, Ramose clearly had a most impressive funeral, but it was no good just having it once. He wanted it always, always there with him to show in the afterlife what a great, important figure he was. This is my favorite bit, the mourning women. And of course, you don't want real grief with you in the afterlife, and that's not what he's getting. He's got highly professional mourners, very expensive. If you look at those faces lifted upwards, they're completely impassive. And they're doing the whole mourning act with enormous grace, their arms like a great sea anemone stretching out with elegance into all directions. And the artist has clearly put in this little naked slave girl to show the difference between her and the real mourners. And there's a beginner mourner too, holding on to the elderly lady to show how these movements of the hands have to be learnt. And you know she's the senior lady because she has this drooping pear of a breast as opposed to the firm little apples of everybody else. So there it is. Rich, successful, important Governor Ramose. And what a joy that at long last we're able to share with him his elegant ladies.
These are just really great little art history lectures that take place, that take you right up into the art itself and frame
Whatever
it
the subject,
in its actual place.
Egyptian tomb painting obeys the same rigid rules. They want the messages to the next world to be totally clear.
God bless Sister Wendy.
What one nobleman wanted was an eternity hunting on the Nile. Can you see? Each part of the human body is seen from the most readable angle. A profile is clearer than full face, but the eyes are clearer seen from the front. Full front torso, sideways legs. And it's Nibberman's tomb, so he's enormous, with a small wife and a tiny daughter. But then what energy in the hunting cat and the birds. The Egyptian artist felt free, plainly, to paint birds with enormous vitality. He hadn't got to make it as clear as he had with the human figure. But if we want an art which takes the human body seriously, we have to wait for the rise of a neighboring civilization. Here, as we can see from the Parthenon statues, it's the human body really looked at that's the center of the artist's interest. Greek writers tell us their wall painting was equally good, unstinting in their praise for its skill and realism. But walls get destroyed, and now the only Greek painting left is on vases. This is a masterpiece, painted and potted by a man called Ezekias. At first sight, you might think the figures look disappointingly flat. But look closer, and you're drawn into an intense human struggle. You can see what the main story is, a man-woman conflict. But for the Greeks, it was much more than that. This is the story of the famous Achilles, the greatest of the heroes, a killing machine. And the woman is Penthesilea, queen of the Amazons, that Greek horror story of the race of fighting women, aggressive women. And what is she? A vulnerable young girl. They're so different. The man is a great black menace. He even looks masked. We see that he's a man, but we can't see his face. And the woman is all white and soft. We see her face all right.
All the fine details in
with
the
clear
painting.
skin, her
On a
black
pot.
curls. She's so lightly armored.
From thousands of years
he
ago.
crushes her.
It's
And
pretty
the
amazing.
story says that as Achilles killed her, as he drove his spear through her throat, their eyes met. And he saw how young she was and how lovely and how brave, and he fell in love. But he'd killed her. And of course, in killing her, he'd killed perhaps his own future happiness. And this is on a vase. Think what the wall painting must have been like. 79 AD, Vesuvius erupts, burying the Roman town of Pompeii. This is one of those instances when something happened that for those concerned was a tragedy, because they died, choking in the volcanic ash.
It was a
struggling
tragedy
to breathe.
because they died.
And that's a terrible way to die. But although we may say alas and alack, for us, selfishly, it turned out a great piece of good fortune, because the dry volcanic ash that buried Pompeii preserved a Roman city almost in its entirety.
It is typically unpleasant to die. I don't know. Sister Wendy is just so
Of course,
real.
It's wonderful that we have Pompeii, and I don't want to sound ungrateful, but it was only a small provincial town, and we can't really expect great art here. Like the Greeks, the Romans were also interested in realism, but they can't always quite carry it off. These figures are rather unconvincing.
I love how she's not afraid to shit on Roman paintings. Critique is
Here, however,
an important part
an
of art.
unknown couple, which really shows Pompeii's art at its best. Fortunately, the Romans had a great interest in faces, and some unknown painter came here and he painted this exceptional portrait. What we do know is that these two were married. There's just an indefinable something about them. But not all that long married, wouldn't you think? I've sometimes wondered if this isn't an expensive version of the wedding photograph. That gawky young man with his big ears. I don't think he's grown into his face yet. He has these beautiful sensual lips but an anxious forehead, and he's looking at us so apprehensively, clutching that precious scroll to his bosom. And then his elegant wife, who I think will drive the family car. She's gazing pensively into the distance with her pen at her delicately pointed chin. And that direction of the gaze, hers to the distance, his apprehensively out at us, just suggests so subtly that this is a marriage that hasn't yet come together. And because this house was still being built when the volcano erupted, the odds are it never had time to come together. They move us and interest us, and that's what makes a good portrait. And it's still more moving when we remember that for hundreds and hundreds of years we won't see something like this again. People looking at us from a wall with such dignity and vitality and intimacy.
This is what really grabbed me about art history, like
Here
in school.
in the West, we went through the dark
Was the story,
ages,
the context,
where the rules
like
and law of the Roman Empire were a distant
all the
memory.
things you can glean from about people's
Christian
lives in the
communities
past.
like the monks on the remote Isle of Iona lived in real
Just from
fear
looking
of
at
Viking
a
raids.
piece of art.
But here they were also free to use their Celtic traditions to create the greatest work of art ever to come from the British Isles, the Book of Kells. If I say this is a book to die for, people probably did die for it. Hiding it, finally escaping with it. One can imagine a little boat, a coracle, and some monk sitting there with the Book of Kells clasped to his breast, one of the few survivors who had to live to take the precious book back to the Irish mainland. And even there it wasn't safe. because about 200 years later, somebody stole the book. Not, alas, for the book itself, because it was probably an illiterate thief, but for the wonderful binding and the casket it was in. And then the wretched villain threw the book into a bog where it stayed for some months until, happily, it was found. And then Cromwell's men came, and it was sent to Dublin to be safe. And then the worst came, because a well-meaning restorer thought the book might look better if it was slightly smaller, and cut bits off. Here you can see this extraordinary page of St. John. The damage shows in the tragedy that this is a surreal St. John, because round the corners are sticking parts of another body, hands and feet, and up at the top, cut off by that restorer, a dastardly creature whose name I will not reveal to you, the head that would have told us who this body is. Is it God the Father embracing St. John, embracing the world? Or was this a sort of crucifixion? Is this Christ on the cross, and St. John, as it were, makes the cross in the middle? Or is it neither of those? Is it just Celtic imagination run wild? We don't know, because it's been destroyed, and things are written in the book, business transactions of the monastery, and people signed their names. It's one of the miracles that something so wonderful and precious has survived.
The Cairo page. I remember that one. I know, right? I wish all of my art history professors had that infectious passion.
Battlements, a castle.
Some of them did.
We've come to the Middle Ages and the time of chivalry. Now the world is becoming smaller. Artists are traveling around and meeting one another. And we're beginning to have what's called, rather pompously, an international style.
Okay, so this is going to be a survey of everything up through the Renaissance, or the Northern Renaissance.
The very
Hell
rich
yeah.
hours of the Duke of Berry, a suitably luxurious title for the sunniest Middle Ages ever painted. Gentry play, happy peasants toil. It's the rich man's view, and that's what the Duke of Berry was. After 1,000 years, non-religious themes in art have reappeared, and the Limburg brothers paint the Duke's property, castles, land, and peasants to liven up his prayer book. The only castle painted by the Limburgs which survives today is Saumur in the Loire Valley. What do we see when we look at this enchanting picture?
I want to live in a medieval French
What
castle.
the Duke of Berry saw was a page from the most splendid manuscript ever owned by a royal prince. And one can imagine him in a broad iron church looking at these magnificent pictures. This is the month of August from the calendar at the beginning of the book. And it's a miraculous picture because it gives the Duke just what he wants. There's the castle, one of his 17 castles, all pearly and gleaming in the light. And here are the courtiers on their splendid horses, perhaps the Duke himself on that white horse, out hawking in all the glory of their attire. But because the Limburgs are great artists, they don't just give the Duke what he wants. They give what they actually saw. And they saw those fields and the river and the peasants swimming, mother naked, unembarrassed, frolicking in the water. So in the front, the courtiers, those living, apparently, the good life. This is August, remember, very hot. They're clothed to the neck in rich, tight clothes. I mean, look at the women's waists. They're on these horses following a game, right, hawking, but it's the rules of the game. And even those sort of canoodling in the back, there are rules for exchanging love looks. So it's a very constricted life, a life being looked at, whereas the peasants, they're free. They're happy. Which is better off, the Limburgs might have been asking. Now, it's this double level that I find so marvelous, and all the Limburgs do. And my favorite painting, I think, is this one, February. Because at first you just see it's comic. Here is the lady of the house, the peasant lady, warming her underpants before the fire, modestly averting her gaze from the men of the house, who are warming their lack of underpants before the fire. And it's this ability truly to look without fixed ideas of what is fitting that makes great painting.
Yeah, they didn't tell us about the Penmas in the book of hours in art history class.
In the story so far, we've spanned centuries and continents. But in the next program, our story becomes focused through one man. His name is Giotto.
The next program is on this tape. We're at 27 minutes, and it's a 54-minute tape. So stay tuned if you wanna watch more of this. A BBC production in association with WGBH Boston. She's just such a good presenter. Like, she wrote all of this. She presents it all too. Oh, you're in luck. I believe we will be ending the program with her Hieronymus Bosch opinions. Yeah, that's a good point. I'm excited for that too.
Any story worth telling needs heroes. But for over 1,000 years, art didn't have any heroes. Or if it did, their names have vanished into oblivion. And suddenly, out of nowhere, came a man who would change all that. Legend has it he was just a humble shepherd, and his name was Giotto. The shepherd boy, spotted drawing a perfect sheep by a passing artist, whisked away to fame and fortune. Ah, but that's the legend. What we do know for sure is that Giotto was suddenly the most famous artist in Italy. And he was employed by the infamous moneylenders, the Scrovegni family, who built the Arena Chapel in Padua to atone for their sins. People flocked here to see Giotto's own miracle, the drama of the Christian stories, painted as never before.
This really makes me appreciate public media. Like, this exists because of public television funding.
People had radio, and then Giotto gives them television. People were bowled over. They came in here.
Please vote for the political candidates whose platforms don't include completely obliterating all funding for public media.
There was the kiss, warm, tender, and there was violence, cold human cruelty. There's a young couple getting married. There's birth. There's a party. And it was all absolutely real. Just look at the body language here. You don't need to know the Christian story to know what Giotto's painting. He's painting that deep, passionate sorrow we feel when somebody we love is dead. There's nothing kind of weepy-waily about here. It's strong, overwhelming grief, and everybody's showing it in a different way. The two men at the end, stiff upper lip, and the young man who just can't believe in death. And central, of course, there's Mary, the one who always grieves most, the mother, holding him with those limp, defeated hands, and just looking at him without a tear. And that carries us, of course, onto the angels, that extraordinary invention of Giotto's. Fizzing away there in the sky, little fireballs of energy and passion and anguish. I can almost hear eerie little bat squeaks coming from them as they tear their clothes and tear their hair and make faces. And this is particularly strange because Giotto wasn't the kind of man who really understood angels. What he understood was the human, making religion seem part of our world, solid and tender and real. With angels, he'd never seen an angel. And when it came to painting them, this is how he usually behaved. Look, the best he can do are two podgy human beings with wings on them. And because they're just sitting there doing nothing, he really can't get up much interest.
Podgy little buggers.
What interests him is the story, as always, the story and what's happening. Here are all the soldiers, those great males supine, lost in sleep, missing it all. And in the middle, this marvelous Mary Magdalene, that wonderful profile, lost in that eternal gesture of longing. And she's longing for Christ, and he is saying to her, he is leaving. He's looking at her, but his body is already carrying him out of this picture. He is saying to her, no. Giotto was lucky to be born at a time when it was the Italian cities that were setting the pace in medieval Europe. And they enjoyed nothing better than showing off to one another on the battlefield, or less dangerously, with colourful pageants, which can still be seen today. Siena had just won an unexpected victory over its more powerful rival, Florence.
Like it was looking
What
like
better way
she
to
might throw up.
celebrate than by ordering a great painting from the city's champion artist?
But I think she's okay.
If Florence had Giotto, then its fierce rival Siena also had a great painter, Duccio. The city was immensely proud of him, and the city fathers commissioned him to paint an enormous painting, the Maestra, the Madonna in Majesty. And when it was finished, they all assembled at the studio, singing and dancing and ringing the bells to carry it to the Duomo. Duccio was older and more conventional than Giotto, but he transformed conventions. Gold leaf had traditionally been used in religious painting, but when Duccio used it, he did so to make a point, to show where the worlds of heaven and earth meet, but do not mingle. He was a Gothic artist, and for the Gothic artist, humanity took second place to the beautiful but remote world of heaven. And here it is, still in Siena, but alas, not in the spaciousness of the cathedral, and double alas, not as Duccio painted it. It was a huge work, a kind of arena chapel in miniature, with the whole story of Christ and his mother in small pictures above and below and at the sides and at the back.
And sometime in the 18th century, some dafty decided to cut bits off. So what we've got here is a picture without the frame and sadly mutilated, but still beautiful. It's Duccio's vision of what it is to be in heaven. No noise, no excitement, just stillness, just lost in peace. All the saints here are the saints dear to the Sienese. And if you just home in on one, you can see the wonderful spiritual beauty with which he painted them. Look at little St. Agnes at the end. Giotto would have been interested in this 14-year-old saint as a person.
Gilding.
Whether she got on with her mother and what her school marks were like and if she had bad teeth, but not Duccio. It's Agnes as a symbol of innocence with the lovely pure lines of her face and the cascades of her robes. And the way she stands there, not as an individual, a specific Agnes, but as a symbol of innocence, taken up into the joy of heaven.
While Giotto had the gift of bringing the characters of the Christian story down to our level, Duccio somehow manages to raise us up to theirs. Looking at Duccio is an immensely spiritual and calming experience. And one thinks, what a gentle man he must have been. But in fact, he was the most turbulent of artists, always in trouble. He wouldn't take up arms in defense of the city, he wouldn't pay his taxes. In fact, as far as Siena was concerned, he was a wouldn't. Siena needed loyal citizens. She was a new republic, no kings, no princes. Here, the elected council ruled from the People's Palace, the magnificent Palazzo Pubblico, which is still the local town hall. Government was taken immensely seriously. The 9 councillors sat in this splendid council chamber in the presence of an extraordinary painting by Ambrogio Lorenzetti with the political message to inspire or to warn. As you enter, you're confronted by bad government. Tyranny rules. The walls are crumbling, no woman is safe in the streets, there's robbery, violence, terror.
But on this wall, in all its splendor, is a panorama of good government. Now, Lorenzetti had a technical problem because there were 2 centers to this. One was justice, because the Republic was based upon every person being treated equally. And there she is, the great Queen, even-handedly distributing justice, with cords leading down to agreement, the community consensus on what was right. And these cords are held by the 24 ordinary Sienese, topped by the 9 with their fur caps, which lead the eye along to the virtues that make a republic. Splendid in the middle is the great patriarchal figure of community spirit, with all the other virtues to help him. Now, with a city like this, governed by justice and community spirit, what could it be but perfect? And Ambrosio knew exactly what the perfect city would look like. The perfect city, of course, was Siena, and there is its signature, the Duomo and the tower up at the top.
Ambrosio painted it as the city of happiness and order, all its citizens enjoying prosperity, being at peace with themselves, flourishing.
And when you come through this well-ordered city and pass outside the gates, you find not just a well-ordered countryside, but a recognizable countryside. Now, the interesting thing is that if you come out of Siena today, that's very like what you see. Those steep little hills, those intensely cultivated slopes. This was the first time an artist really took his own geographical setting and saw it as full of meaning. It's an enchanting picture for us, but we've got to remember that it was in fact a supreme feat of avant-garde imagination.
People were beginning to look at the world around them with fresh eyes. Hundreds were flocking to join the Franciscan brothers, who were living a life of poverty in harmony with nature. The enormous Basilica of St. Francis was decorated by all the best painters in Italy.
God, look at that
It's
foundation.
almost like a Gothic who's who. The very height of Gothic elegance can be found in the work of Simone Martini. He painted the Chapel of St. Martin, bringing together Giotto's humanity and the serenity of his teacher Duccio. A 100 years on and north to the city of Bruges to see the last great flowering of the art of the Middle Ages. The Flemish artists were rather different to the Italians. They saw the world differently. They were northerners, far more down to earth, far less idealistic. What they loved painting were the common or garden elements
God,
of
I
their
want to
own
go to
households.
Flanders now. Stop it. It's too beautiful.
You could say they invented the interior. They were helped in this rather more domestic approach to painting by the climate. They couldn't paint on damp walls, so they painted on wood. And wood was the perfect background for using oils. Oil is translucent. It catches the light. It could recreate all the gleaming detail of a wealthy home or a splendid church. And the first great master of oil painting
Jan
was
van Eyck.
Jan van Eyck,
Jan van Eyck.
whose technique created a brilliant and lucid reality. This is one of those unforgettable paintings, Jan van Eyck's portrait of, and here I begin to falter. Is it of the Arnolfini marriage, or of the Arnolfini betrothal, or just portrait of Giovanni Arnolfini and his wife, Giovanna? It's one of those paintings that looks so simple, but the more you look at it, the more you see how rich it is.
I'm so excited
And
for
to
her
me,
monologue on this painting.
rich is the operative word. These are two young Italians making it in wealthy Bruges, and they want to show that they're making it. Everything here is a status symbol, and we can so easily misread it. We look at that bed and we say, ha-ha. No, this isn't a bedroom. This is the reception room, because a bed like that was considered a wonderful piece of furniture, and you wanted to display it, not to use it. And Giovanna's dress, again, we think we know she's pregnant. Not at all. That's the very latest fashion, with the swelling stomach, a hideous fashion, but still the very latest, cascading down to show how very rich she is. Is the little dog there as a symbol of marital fidelity? Or because it's the thing to have an expensive little pet dog of no functional value to the household? And the oranges, those costly fruit, everything here can be read many ways. There's that mirror, and you can see figures reflected in it, one of which must be the artist. And above it is written, Jan van Eyck was here. And I always think this is a witticism, because never was there a painting when it was not obvious that the painter was there. His eye has made the painting. What you're seeing is what that scalpel-sharp eye of Van Eyck saw.
It's the mirror. Oh my God, it's the whole goddamn room.
All Van Eyck's paintings are about looking,
It
about
exists?
reporting.
You can go there?
Even when he paints the man who held the purse strings for one of the most powerful dynasties in Europe, Chancellor Roland, a man who could make or break any artist, Van Eyck is always detached. And for us looking on, this detachment may even have a touch of irony. Before you get lost in the beauty of this painting, we should perhaps notice its title, The Virgin of Chancellor Roland. What is Van Eyck getting at? Is this painted in honor of the Virgin or in honor of Chancellor Roland himself? Chancellor Roland was notorious for taxing the poor. But as he entered his twilight years, he began to worry about the health of his soul, and to ease his conscience, he built a hospital for the sick poor. In the Middle Ages, people came to hospital not to be cured, but to die. The nuns who cared for them only knew how to prepare their patients for the next world. As the incurable lay here, 3 or 4 to a bed, racked with pain and disease, they could look to the altar at the end of this room, where Roland had placed a glorious encouragement for them. This is the great Last Judgment
I think that was
that Van der Weyden painted for the sick in hospital
Henrik
here.
Gorecki. The
And first of all, with
music in the
wonderful
background.
clarity, he shows us what the Last Judgment will be. Angels trumpeting to rouse the dead, Christ there in his majesty as judge, and St. Michael weighing the dead to see whose selfishness is so great that it will drag him downwards. Now you can see that Van der Weyden is as great an artist as Van Eyck. Look at that cloak that St. Michael is wearing, the gleam and the realism of it. But he had one gift that Van Eyck didn't have. He had an extraordinary power to express emotion. Look at the anxious concern on the faces of his saints. Here are none of the stern looks we normally find in Last Judgments. We sense anticipation in the eyes of the dead rising from the earth. Will they follow the grateful blessed, being received by an angel into heaven? Or will their consciences be so burdened that they will be drawn down to join the damned? Now here, Van der Weyden does something special.
Oh, the damned.
In place of the usual Gothic images of the damned being snatched away by triumphant devils, he shows them taking themselves to the fire or dragging each other down. Guilt feelings, they condemn themselves. And there's not a devil in sight. While the people of the Middle Ages were desperately concerned about the worlds to come, they were equally fearful of the present. There was so little in their lives that they could understand or control, and this terrible uncertainty made them vulnerable to superstition. Their minds were possessed by the image of the world as a battlefield between good and evil, as we see it in the medieval mystery plays. Yet, fear can drive the imagination. Take the Flemish painter Hieronymus Bosch. His demons come from the darkest extremes of the Gothic vision. They embody the moral anguish of the Gothic mind and all its secret terrors. In The Temptation of St. Anthony, The saint is tormented by demons. It looks like science fiction, but it's not. It's a complex code. Bosch's attempt to give a prophetic warning. In a small painting like this Ship of Fools, I think we can see more clearly how deeply serious an artist Bosch was. A magical artist, I mean, it's full of humour, but its message is a profound one. It's that old metaphor of life as a voyage. And what does Bosch see us doing on the voyage? Wasting time, eating and drinking and fooling around, quite oblivious of where our ship is going, drifting. It's not that they're irreligious people. After all, these two in the front are monk and nun. And although she's playing the lute and their cherries here, symbols of love, you really cannot look at those aged, emaciated figures and think there's any question of sexuality going on there. They're just time wasters. And that's what Bosch thinks is wrong. He wants to paint a picture that makes it clear that in the Gothic mind, man is evil, ugly, prone to drift, and needs teaching. Nature beautiful, with all that glittering dew. Man not. So he paints the Ship of Fools. Bosch himself never sailed on the tide of world history. He never moved from his provincial birthplace, the town of Den Bosch, from which he took his name. While new ideas were shaking the foundations of medieval thought, Bosch, however bizarre and extraordinary and original his images, clung to what he knew. This was the medieval cathedral where Bosch worshipped all his life. He was the last great artist who instinctively saw the world in Gothic terms, a world of gargoyles and devils and humankind under threat. So, Gothic art went out with Bosch like a gigantic firework exploding in the dark sky. In our next program, we move into a new world, the age of Leonardo, Michelangelo, and the splendors of the Italian Renaissance.
Donatello and Raphael. Oh, boy. What a lovely program. This is, again, Sister Wendy Beckett, one of her BBC programs. You can probably find them on, like, some streaming service with a... You can probably stream them for free from the BBC with a VPN. But yeah, this was a really lovely tape. Like I said, I found it myself in a thrift store, and I was very, very jazzed that we were able to get some Sister Wendy on the screen. Hey, all right. 1,000 bits from Green Day Rock for a song of Mal's choosing. Thank you very much. And yeah, I guess if you didn't know I was streaming, Haley, you just heard me play the harmonica and talk to myself. But that is going to be our stream for today. We will. This is the last tape we're watching today. Let's say. Oh, that's not the slider I want. We got a few songs here, one of which we will play after the break. I mean, I can. If Mel is not here or wants a suggestion, I can pick one too. would be a good one. Okay. I do randomly play the harmonica a lot. Yeah, I feel like I've gotten better at it. At the one song. Now my suggestion is Say Hello to Your Friends from the Babysitters Club. Because that's less used and I think
Guys.
appropriate. Thank you, Green Day.
You can always count on me, and I can count on you. Good times, bad times in between.
Thanks for being here, everybody. I know it's a short stream. We stretched to the classics, and we enjoyed Sister Wendy's fine work.
Growing in every way. Say hello to your friends. Say hello to the people who care. Nothing's better than friends. Babysitters Club. 'Cause you know that your friends are always there. If I'm feeling down and out, if I'm feeling blue, I know I can lean on you. My friends will see me through. We'll be sharing wonderful times every day. All together singing our song. Growing in every way. Say hello to your friends. Babysitters Club. Say hello to the people who care. Nothing's better than friends. Babysitters Club. 'Cause you know that your friends are
Sorry about the slight
always
delay.
there. If I'm feeling down and out,
Oh, thank you.
if I'm feeling blue,
I need to catch up on VODs.
I
The
can lean on you. My friends
stream
will
before
see me
last
through.
was a copyright nightmare
Growing up
with
together,
James Harriet and the Hungarian Fox cartoon.
Sending you my love, straight from the heart. Say hello to your friends. Babysitters Club. Say hello to the people who care. Nothing's better than friends. Babysitters Club. 'Cause you know that
SC
your
Johnson
friends are
Wax,
always
Tyco
there.
Toys, Willy Wonka Brands, Works Animal Crackers. Fashions courtesy of Antique Boutique, Canal Jean, Capezio Ballet Makers, Cohen Optical, Easton Sportswear, Genera Guess, Kathy Jean Hats, Keds, Krellick, Christie Hats, Rosecraft, Salmon, Libby, Shady Character, Street Life, True Colors, Ultra Pink, Urban Outfitters.
'Cause you know that your friends are always there.
Put a lot into the wardrobe budget for the Babysitters Club.
Babysitters Club. Say hello to your friends. Babysitters Club. Say hello to your friends. Babysitters Club.
Yeah,
Say
the
hello to your friends. Babysitters
those
Club.
VODs should be up
Say hello to your
soon.
friends.
They just have to
Babysitters
reprocess
Club.
every
Say
time
hello to
copyrighted
your
stuff gets cut out of them.
Babysitters Club. Say hello to your friends. Babysitters Club.
Yay. That was Babysitters Club. There's got to be, all right, I'm gonna remind you all of, wait, where is it? I'm gonna play one more
With
song.
Mother Goose occupied incubating her eggs and watching the muskrat, Father
Because I don't
Goose
think enough
goes
people appreciate
on the Goose
how
Patrol.
amazing Goose Patrol is.
What's all this commotion? It's another gander near the island with the big dead tree. Chances are there's another nest on the island. There's the goose sitting on her nest right next to
Morning,
the trunk
Joshy D.
of the big dead tree.
We're wrapping
Goose
up here
nests
because
are
I
not
want to go
difficult to
outside today.
locate once
So
the
we
gander is
watched
spotted.
Stretchin'
When
to
a
the
goose
Classics
stands its ground and
with
is
Richard
noisy
Simmons.
and threatening, look carefully. There's a
And
good
Sister
chance
Wendy's
that
story
there's a
painting.
nest nearby.
It's been a good one. I'm glad I hopped on for a little bit to stream here. As much as I wanted to just fuck off to the woods this morning, I can still do that, and it's been great to spend a little time with y'all and watch some tapes. Thank you all for being here, and thank you for your generous support, including the generous support of Will Peters, who would like to see I Don't Care, i.e., a.k.a. Pierre, the Carole King Maurice Sendak collab, which we will watch as soon as I cut off the recording. Hooray, thanks for being here, everyone. Bye.